Hey, Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. And thank you especially to the patrons who help make this possible for you every single day with their support at patreon.com/SW7x7. All right, we're going to talk about Realization today, which is the second of the 3 Barriss Offee episodes in Tales of the Empire. And we're going to do it in our modified 7 takeaway breakdown format because the episode is another short one. It's just over 12 minutes. And that's including the credits and all the extra time for all the voice actors in the other countries. But yeah, all right, enough. Let's get into it. So the first takeaway is that allegedly this is happening in 19 BBY, so not long after the fall of the Republic. And yeah, like probably so, because Barriss seems to be off on one of her early missions and seems like, it doesn't look like there's been any aging or anything like that. But in talking to the Jedi that's on the run, Barriss says, "Aren't you tired of running?" And it kind of gives you the idea that maybe it's been a little bit longer, like maybe we're deeper into 19 BBY necessarily. So, that Jedi has to have been on the run for a significant amount of time for Barriss to be able to say something like that. Like a couple of weeks wouldn't be like, "Aren't you tired?" I feel like. At least is my thinking on the subject. For a second takeaway, the fourth sister and Barriss really seem to have the good cop, bad cop routine dialed, because they get to this rocky planet, which is not named for us, and they get to this village, and the fourth sister is questioning villagers and doing the whole routine that, we saw the Grand Inquisitor do in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Meanwhile, Barriss finds a kid who has kind of ducked away and managed to very gently talk the kid into saying that the Jedi are in the mountains. Now, Barriss thinks this is a good thing that this kid fessed up and that the villagers are going to, all benefit from this. But oh my gosh, that's exactly the opposite of what happens. And so maybe that's another reason why this has to be comparatively early on in Barriss's situation, because the way that the fourth sister reacts is absolutely horrific. And the first shot she tries to take is at the governor, who initially said there's no Jedi around here, and a kid steps in front of the governor and the kid gets it. I mean, this was actually kind of shocking in its way. It's possibly one of the most brutal scenes I've seen in animation from Star Wars. There is absolutely no question that a kid stepped in front of the governor and the fourth sister just slashed that kid down, and we actually see it in the animation. So I know I started saying at the top that maybe this was a little bit further along after the fall of the Republic in 19 BBY, but the more we're talking about this here, the more I think that, maybe it's actually a little bit closer, in that Barriss really hasn't gone on all that many missions, because even some of the things that she's talking about how can Emperor Palpatine let this place go like this, and having the fourth sister say, they're reaping what they're sowing, Barriss can't be that naive, and so it has to be something that she is discovering for the first time and early on, it seems like. And for a third takeaway, this kind of dovetails in, we'll talk about just how callous a master of sorts the fourth sister is, because she just doesn't care about what's going on with Barriss. She's hiking up into the mountains, and Barriss seems to be kind of struggling to keep up a little bit, but they're not going together. She's just, lagging behind, and Lynn, the fourth sister, keeps going on. And then when they're actually scaling the side of a mountain and those boulders come down, maybe it's a trap, maybe not, but even so, Barriss warns Lynn. Lynn's able to get out of the way. Barriss is knocked and falls a little bit, but Lynn doesn't come to help her. Lynn doesn't even wait to see if she's okay. Lynn just keeps going up the mountain, which sort of leads into a fourth takeaway, that we don't necessarily know yet what Lynn was as a Jedi before she became an Inquisitor. Probably not a Padawan, but a Knight or a Master, we don't necessarily know. And for that matter, Barriss apparently is a Jedi Knight. I don't think we get to see a knighting ceremony in any of the Clone Wars stuff, but she's identified as a Jedi Knight when she is, arrested and bombs the Jedi Temple. So she's a rank up at least, and it does really raise the question, how the heck was Ahsoka not a Jedi Knight by the time all of that happened anyway? But I digress. The reason why I was flagging the question of whether she's a knight or a Padawan has to do with the Jedi that they encounter up in the mountains, and that Jedi makes pretty quick work of Lynn. So, that Jedi does not have a Padawan braid, whether, they cut the braid off or, whether there just isn't one. I don't know, but I'm guessing this is probably a Jedi Knight as well. Seems a little young to be a master, potentially. And this Jedi also is just identified as the Jedi in the credits. So we don't get any information about the Jedi. We don't get any information about the planet. Yeah, we are in the dark about a lot of stuff here. Anyway, for our fifth takeaway, Barriss actually gets this Jedi to power down their lightsaber, which then, of course, you see it coming a mile away, and yet it still comes as a surprise, which I guess means that the storytelling is still compelling regardless. The fact that Lynn, who seemed to have been knocked out, wakes up just in time to come back in and, strike the Jedi from behind. It is weird, though, to hear people like Lynn say the Jedi need to be exterminated, but then to find out that the blow that Lynn delivered was not a killing blow, and Lynn is like, fine, whatever. This seems to be very par for the course for pretty much any lightsaber wielding character, right? Like, think about what Obi-Wan did with Anakin. I mean, Anakin was not dead, but he also didn't try to take Anakin into any kind of custody or try to rescue him in any way. Even when he got set on fire, Obi-Wan's just kind of like, oh, that sucks, see ya. Another brief digression, but anyway, yeah, this ultimately is the bridge too far for Barriss, who, after hearing Lynn say all the Jedi need to be exterminated, then Barriss is like, well, there's one more you got to take care of here, and there's a brief fight, or it's not even really a fight, because Lynn goes to attack and Barriss just force pushes her off the cliff, which is like, yeah, I mean, how much simpler does it get? Now, of course, we know that the Fourth Sister is going to survive this fall because she shows up in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And yes, I've read a little bit ahead, and she's going to show up in the third episode of Tales of the Empire too. But even not knowing that, we know she survives anyway. For a sixth takeaway, I'm just going to flag something. We are on the cusp of Pride Month here. When we have that kid in the little settlement say, they're in the mountains, you think that there are multiple Jedi in the mountains, and then they get up there and it's only one Jedi, but that Jedi has they, them pronouns. And that's perfectly fine. For my purposes, I'm watching this and thinking it's just such a bummer that the English language does not have a widely accepted third-person singular gender-neutral pronoun. So from a storytelling perspective, it just creates a little bit of confusion in that regard. I'm glad that the representation is there, to be sure, and yet it just highlights how the English language, as it stands right now, is not keeping up with society. And so, yeah, come on, Oxford English Dictionary and Merriam-Webster and all of you, give us a widely accepted third-person singular gender-neutral pronoun, please. And barring that, for that matter, there have been other pronouns that have been put forth in Star Wars novels. I think E.K. Johnston, not too long ago, had different pronouns that were being used for one of the characters in her Queen's trilogy of novels. So yeah, even that would be cool too. And for our final takeaway, a little fun fact thing, I'll flag that the Governor character is voiced by Keith Ferguson, and Keith Ferguson has actually played both Han Solo and Indiana Jones in voice acting for Robot Chicken, and was also the voice of Han Solo in the Lego movie as well. So that's just kind of a fun little bit of trivia there for you. And that is going to do it for our modified 7 takeaway breakdown about Realization, which is the second of the 3 Barriss Offee episodes in the Tales of the Empire series, and that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. If you enjoy this daily dose of Star Wars joy, I hope you will consider getting the word out to more people for me. You can do that very simply by leaving a rating or review, by telling friends that you know, by liking, subscribing, following, joining, to tell the algorithms that this podcast should be shared with other people. And you can even help me create and produce it on the daily. And you can learn more about that at patreon.com/SW7x7. And it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode, as always. And may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.